Hi folks, I'm working on my second virtual choir video now, and I wanted to share a workflow tip that helped save me a lot of time in my first video and that I'm going to keep using again, and that is to use the audio program REAPER to export your video all at the same starting point so that you don't have to line it up twice. Now, this is only going to help you if you're doing a separate audio and video mix for your project. If you're throwing all the videos in a video editor, then you don't need to use this video. But I knew that I wanted to do the audio separately so that I could modify the volumes of each part and do some equalization and some other audio tweaks to make it sound what I wanted. Reaper is primarily an audio editing program, but it has video capabilities in terms of importing and exporting, so that's going to help us in what we're doing. So I'm going to show you my Reaper window here. For my videos, I've created a click track for my singers to follow along with. So I'm going to start with that actual click track and put their videos into on top of that. You'll notice that I have a MIDI file that I created from my notation program and imported into here, and then added a metronome click underneath that. And I'll put links on how to do this and how to set up video editing in the description so that I'm not focusing on all of those things in this video. The other thing I have is I put a little click track over here and have all my singers clap on one of these clicks so that I can really quickly line up the tracks just by the visualization of the waveform. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit vertically and then add 2 tracks for my videos that I'm going to use for this demonstration. And they're videos of me singing 2 of the parts. So I'm just going to name them with myself. If you're not working with a click track, you probably won't need to do this next step. But the way Reaper behaves when you have a click track is everything is lined up along these metronome points. So when you specify a tempo and time signature, every audio is lined up along these points. So what happens when you import an audio item, we'll just go ahead and do that. Grab this video of me singing tenor. What happens when you import that item into a metronomic track is you'll see that when you move it, it adjusts this play rate right here. That's because it is trying to keep things at the same tempo, and when you move it, it tries to compensate for that. So I'm going to undo that. Anytime you're adding audio into a click track, you have to select these tracks and change the time base. The project time base right now is set on beats, so we want to change it to time. And now I can move my track around without it changing the play rate. It took up a lot of time for me the first time I did this, trying to figure that out, so hopefully that saves you some work. So I had my singers clap on this 5th click right here, so I'm just going to line up. You can see where I clapped right there. And I'll use this opportunity to show you how the video monitoring works in Reaper. If you go up to View, you can turn on the video monitor. This is me singing tenor in my green shirt, just so we'll be able to keep it separate from other things. So I'm going to play it right now. So you can see that big spike in the audio waveform image coincides with my clapping. I'm going to move it over here. You'll notice that it's right now it's snapping to the beat grid line, which is not necessarily what we want because we didn't turn on our recording at a specific tempo alignment. So we're going to turn that off so that I can get it really tuned in there. And actually that looks pretty good. And so now you'll see that I sort of start singing right where my MIDI tracks start. Now I'm going to add my bass track. You'll notice that when I insert the media file, I'm actually inserting the video. So it's not separating video from audio until you actually import it into the program. And I'll do the same alignment here with this track. We already changed the time base of the two tracks simultaneously before. That's great. So now we have the two tracks lined up with each other. You can hopefully hear that they're pretty close. That's close enough for now. I might try to get them closer. And of course, when we do our audio editing, we're going to take away all the MIDI tracks out of the master mix so that you can just hear the singing. Let's open up the video monitor like we did before from View. And you'll notice it's me in the green shirt, which is my tenor video. And we can only see that video. We can't see the other video. That's because Reaper, in any multi-track setup handling video, it only looks at the video of the top track, even though we can hear both audio tracks. So in order to see the bottom bass track, we're going to have to mute my tenor track, which is above it. Now you can see me in a blue shirt singing bass there. And it's just my bass track playing because we muted this tenor track. If we unmute it, we're going to hear both audio but see the very topmost video track. That's going to be really important for us as we export in a minute. Okay. So normally when I audio edit, I would get rid of all of this volume at the beginning. So we don't actually want to hear any of this clapping or anything. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to take this start point that I have, move it a little bit over, and use the S key. Oh, we're going to select both these tracks. If I had, you know, a bunch of different tracks, I would just select all and use the S key to split. Now, normally in audio editing, I would actually mute these objects. So again, I can select all of these objects that are before my split, and I would normally set them to mute so that we're not hearing any audio. But if we bring up our video audio monitor here, you'll see that nothing actually happens whenever you mute a video object. You don't see any picture. So in order to still see a video object at the beginning, we're gonna not mute them, but turn the volume all the way down, which will give us the same audio effect but retain the video. So in Reaper, I'm going to make sure they're all selected and right-click and go to Item Properties and turn the volume all the way down to -infinity. So you can see in our waveform that we're not getting any audio. But if we open up back our video monitor, we can still see me in my green shirt there for my tenor track, fixing my hair. So for me, I like to leave a little bit of space at the beginning and the end so that I can bring in singers at different times, or bring in my singers before the actual audio portion of the video starts. So that's why I want to make sure that I've left the video content there, but not the audio. I'm going to do the same thing at the end, move my marker over there, select both of these objects, split, and it automatically retains the selection of the ending. Item Properties, and turn the volume all the way down. And I'm probably going to do a fade in for all of these tracks and a fade out at the end. This is just a really quick, dirty audio editing that I would do a lot more care with in the real thing. All right, so the next step, now we've got our audio lined up. It's more or less edited, and we want to export our audio mix so that we can have really great audio sounding in our video, and each video individually so that we can put them into our project. And the way we're going to do this is using the time selection in Reaper. This is used for listening to loops or listening to a certain selection of your project rather than the whole thing. We're just going to set it to something like this. We don't need to see anybody clapping, so I'll put it after the clap. Now we have a certain time selected in our project so that we can use that and export based on that rather than our entire project. And that way everything's going to start at that same point and end at that same point. If you knew that you wanted to end all your videos at the same time, then you could do something like move it over here closer to the ending of your music. And that would save you from having to adjust all the endings of each video. But I like to do mine individually, so I'm going to make sure that it goes past my last video so that it doesn't cut anything off. It doesn't really matter at this point where your points are because you can adjust them in your video editor. It only matters that they're all at the same point. So now I'm going to go to rendering. We go to File, Render. First, I'm going to do my master audio mix. We want to make sure we change the bounds to time selection. That's our little white-gray time selection there. And you'll see that it starts at 53 seconds. So you can confirm that it's not starting at the beginning. Reaper has these really useful file name tools. So if I change the wildcard to using the track, that's going to be really helpful when we export each individual video. I'm going to export my master mix as a WAV file so that it's not compressing the audio. Now I've already done this, so I'm not going to actually do it here. But the great thing about Reaper is that it can queue each of these so that you can set them all up to render and then walk away and let it do its thing for a little while. So I'm going to click on queued renders and add to render queue. So it's not actually going to render out the WAV file yet, but it'll do that when I finish setting up all these. So remember we talked about Reaper using the topmost video when it exports any visual. So we're going to have to make sure that when we export this base video that the tenor is turned off. It doesn't really matter because we've got an audio mix what's muted underneath. If we hear the audio of the tenor and bass on this tenor video, it doesn't really matter, but it helps me to keep track of the ones I've done if I just mute them all. So you can actually come down here to your mixer and do Control A, which will select all and turn everything to mute. And because I've still got them selected, anytime I actually change them, it's going to toggle that for all of them. So I have to get out of that select all by clicking the track I want and turn it off mute. Now we're going to go back to our rendering. And instead of the master mix, we're going to go to stems. Stems exports each track individually as an individual file. So right now we've got our tenor track selected. It's the highest most video, so we don't have to worry about anything overlapping with it. And we're setting it to the same time selection as our master audio mix. So now I'm going to change the format to a video format. Again, you have to set up the FFmpeg encoder in Reaper, and I'll give you a link in the description how to do that. I'm going to change mine to MP4. Here's another good thing about this process is that I knew that I was receiving 1920 by 1080p videos, but having a bunch of those videos in my video editor was going to cause a lot of slowdown. So I knew I wanted to scale them down anyway to save processing space and RAM. So this way I'm doing two steps at once, aligning them and I'm going to scale them down. So if you click on this little triangle here, it gives you a bunch of different resolutions and frame rates. You can actually retrieve the current resolution frame rate from the video. You'll see that I'm shooting at 60 FPS, but I'm going to scale it down to 1280 by 720 and 30 FPS, because that's what my project is, 30 FPS. And then I've already done the math of how many people are in this particular video, and so I know what the dimensions are going to be in the final grid. So I know that I can go down to 1280 by 720. I'm actually going to put the video quality 100%. Again, your audio isn't going to matter because we're going to use the master mix. But if you wanted to use a different video codec, you could. And again, I'm going to just cue this render rather than do it now, so that I don't have to wait on it right now. Okay, so I've queued up my tenor video. You'll notice that it's using the track name, which is really useful so that you don't have to actually type in here. So I'm going to cancel that. And now in order to see this bass video, I'm going to have to mute that tenor video. Remember we talked about if I try to play, it's still going to see that topmost video. So I'm going to mute that. Now I can see this video. So now we're going to do the exact same rendering setup that we did before, and probably it's going to retain the same settings. So we see that it's doing the stem, and for our specific time selection, I've got my bass track selected here. And we're going to do 1280 by 720 and 100%. And now I'm going to add this to my render queue. And in this example, this is my last video, so I'm going to open the queue. And if I actually wanted to convert all of these, I would just go to render all. You can see here that I've got my master track wave going out, and then my two video formats. So I'm not going to do that right now because I've already done it for the purposes of this example. But then you would just go to wherever you've set the output folder to be, if it's the same folder as your project file or wherever you set it specifically. I'm going to open that up. Now I have my two video files and my wave file. So I'm going to go into my video editor. I've been using Kdenlive, but if you're using Premiere or Resolve or something else, this would work the same way. I'm not going to adjust my resolution right now, but normally it would be a lot higher. And navigate to that folder and import the videos and the audio file. And we'll pull each file. You'll notice I have a lot of extra space here to work with. And as long as you have snapping turned on in your video editor, you'll notice that these will snap to the same alignment point, and you can see that they're the same length there. I'm going to add an audio track. And make sure that snapped, because I don't think it did. There we go. So now we have our master audio track as well as our two video tracks. And I can position those as you would editing your video in any other way. Remember, we're not going to use the audio from each of those video tracks. We're only going to use our master audio. But now you can see that they are already lined up simultaneously, and I don't have to do any moving around. And I can adjust the length. If I select one video, can adjust the length of that one and then add fades and etc. As I need to. But as long as I don't move them around, then they're already lined up. Hope this was helpful for you, and please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thanks.